Okay, so today we're going to go over a quick overview on how to create a really cool landscape for any kind of object that you've created. We're going to just be using found images and a little bit of Photoshop. So we have here our image that we're going to put into our desert background. So we have our unit droid, which we're going to actually Photoshop out this background, and we're going to place it on a new desert landscape. So what you're going to do first is you're going to actually have to cut out your R2 unit from your original image. So if we go ahead and take a look at what that looks like right here, we have our R unit, and there's nothing behind it, as you can see. So we're going to have to actually go through and put in all the objects that we want behind it. So to do that, we're going to start with just basic layers. So make sure you have everything on a separate layer so you can go back and make changes if you need to. And to start out, I just use kind of a gray background. So there's your full-on background that we're going to put everything on top of. And then this layer is not really entirely needed, but you can do it anyway. This is my horizon layer, so that's pretty much going to designate where the horizon line is going to be as we move forward. And then I decided that I wanted to have a sky at first, but then I decided it wasn't really necessary. That's totally up to you, but if you do want to do a sky layer, then you'll just do a fade. Again, to do a fade, you're going to go to the paint bucket tool, and you're going to go to gradient, and then you'll be able to choose your two colors. Either you have it fade to a color or no color. As you can see up here, we have it fading to no color. So if you do a sky, obviously you're going to want it to fade down to nothing because your horizon is going to have its own color, and that's in part due to the background. So this is going to be a really hazy landscape, so that's how we're doing it. If you did want to do a different color, you could do it a different color, but I chose to do blue. And then you just click and basically drag down, hold down shift to get a straight line, and there you go, you have your gradient. As you can see, it goes brown to transparent here, but you would want to do blue for a sky. And then once you have those two, we're going to do our haze. So this is again just another gradient. So that's another layer here, and we've actually added some masking to this layer, and I'll show you why we added masking to it. Basically, that masking is going to allow us to make the foreground objects a little bit more clear. So that's going to be your haze layer there, and then you're going to need to start pulling in your actual background, hills, cliffs, whatever you want to call them, and your foreground ground. So for this, we're going to be pulling in some basic images that have just been erased for what portions I don't want to use. Now you could do masking for these items, but I chose not to just because I was completely eliminating them. The proper way to do it is really to go down, create a mask, so you can always go back and bring back anything that you accidentally erased that you wanted to return. In this case, we don't really need to do that, but for some of these I have done it. So here you can see our ground. Started putting that together. We've got a little bit more here, one of our rocks. A little more ground, that's our shadow for R2. And then here we have the trail for R2. Doesn't look like much now, but when we put it all together, it'll look pretty fantastic. So to bring in our sky in our background, kind of, gonna bring that in. We'll turn off our sky just because we didn't want to use that originally. So this desert ground here is already kind of masked off. And we're gonna bring in the other layers. And here's another portion of our ground. So for this piece right here, I didn't have a big enough landscape, and obviously I didn't want to have rocks where the R unit was going to be driving over the surface because, you know, it can't really drive over rocks. So instead of doing that, we made it perfectly smooth, and then we brought in a few extra rocks on top of that. So to do that, all I really needed to do was clip portions of my ground from this one and copy them and paste them over here. And then we also used a little bit of the spot healing tool. So we used our clone stamp tool, and we used our spot healing tool here. And with those two items, we were able to actually clone over and make the ground look not so uniform, not so copied, not so kind of like a pattern as if it were copied straight over. So it blends pretty well if you do it that way. And then moving up from there, we're going to add some more rocks into the background here. So again, this is just a portion of the image on the left side here, copied and pasted over here. Now I could have flipped the image, but the shadows, as you can see, are all facing one direction. So if you flip the image, you're going to get shadows that are facing the wrong direction. So instead we just cloned it over here and left it facing the right direction, scaled it down a little bit. As you may see, some of these rocks look similar to the ones right over here, which they are. Once we scale that down, we can then move on to the next portion. We're going to put in some more smaller rocks here. So we've got those. Got some more fill in here. Again, this is all just copying from the existing image and bringing it over to fill into the background. And then we wanted to make the front foreground here a little bit broken up. So what we did was we took a couple of these rocks over here on the left, copied them, pasted them over here on a new layer, scaled them up a little bit, and now they're living right there. And then we can get started on our background. So as you can see, this is basically an image that's been cropped out as a background layer. It's its own separate layer. And then to break up the original kind of rock lines, what I did was I took my marquee tool, our select tool up here, so the rectangular marquee tool, and then just sliced out pieces and essentially hold down Control, and then you can get the scissors and you're going to cut and just drag those. So when you have that selected, which I don't have it selected, there we go. So you can just click, hold down, drag it over to the right, and essentially what you're going to do is create kind of a jagged outcropping, and it breaks up the surface of the rock, which makes it kind of gives it kind of a cool effect, which is what I was going for this image. So that's how I did that. So we'll go ahead and deselect that, and you can see that I went kind of up the face of it and just moved the pieces a little bit. It's not as obvious when you're looking at the whole image, but here it does seem kind of obvious. And then also you can see we blended into the background a little bit. This area over here on the left I don't really care about because it's going to be covered up by another portion of this image. So we're going to go ahead and pull in our next layer portion. So this is our foreground. So we basically just, if we turn off all these other layers here, you can see what we have. So this is what we have as our image, and I've just pretty much just gone in and painted over everything that I don't want to eliminate it. Again, you can do this with the masking tool and do a layer mask. It makes it real easy to go back and undo if you need to undo. I did originally do that, and then I flattened the image, which, you know, if you want to go back and make changes, not the smartest thing to do because then you're stuck with what you have. But I'm happy with how it came out. So that's going to be that layer. And then we're going to add another rock over here on the right. Same technique where we chopped it up, moved things a little bit, make it look unique, more kind of alien to the landscape. And then we're going to go on, brought in this one just to kind of fill in the background and make it seem a little bit more rugged on the terrain. And then if we go ahead and go back through, we're going to add in all these layers one by one, turn them back on, and you can see that our image comes together nicely. And then we're also going to add in our haze, which makes a big difference, I think, in terms of creating some depth to the landscape. It looks very alien now. And then we're going to actually put in our R2 unit. There's Mr. R2. And then we're going to add some shadow. And then we're going to add the trails. So that's where Mr. R2 is coming from. So that was a really quick breakdown on how we created this really easy landscape. And pretty much starting from just our blank sheet and then going up and filling in all the layers that we do need to create our foreground and background. And there you have it. So that's how to create a desert landscape based on a foreground object that you want to put into a different background.